Hello. Welcome to another cruiser inspection in World of Warships. And we are looking at the Prins van Oranje, however the fuck you say this in that made up language they call Dutch. What is the PVO? Because I just call it the PVO. What is the PVO? Well, you are basically a turret swapped, airstrike swapped Golden Lion hull. Long and the short of it, um, you are a copy paste Golden Lion hull. You have two turrets in the front, one in the back. They, however, have four barrels and they shoot 234 millimeter guns with normal cruiser dispersion. Golden Lion has, I believe, battle cruiser dispersion, if I'm not mistaken, with very good Sigma, by the way. But this has standard cruiser dispersion, standard cruiser Sigma. So that is, if you're wondering how much more accurate is that the Golden Line, actually quite a bit. You're probably looking anywhere between 20% and 30% tighter dispersion at pretty much all ranges. Now, as far as the damage output goes, the guns are actually quite similar. They have, Golden Lion. We're going to assume, okay, we're going to make an assumption that you're a non-retarded player, right? And you're gonna take reload mod on Prins Van, on the PVO, and you're gonna take, the funny unique upgrade on Golden Lion, right? So we're gonna add 12% reload to our PVO when we're talking about the gun performance, right? Because you have 18-kilometer base range, no reason to take range. So given that, you have almost identical AP DPM to the Golden Lion, and you have about maybe 15% better HEDPM. Now, factoring in your significantly better accuracy, I would say real world your HE spamming DPM is probably somewhere around 30 to 40% better than Golden Lion. Just factoring in you're probably hitting something like 8 to 10 shells per salvo at medium range, whereas Golden Lion is probably, right, which is 2/3 to 4/5 maybe of your salvo. Golden Lion kind of maybe averages half its shells on target, right? Now, as far as the gun performance, it's very similar to Henry. I'm sure someone has worked out like the AP is Goliath AP, but it's faster flight velocity, yada yada. They feel like Henry guns, with I think very marginally better ballistics, but don't quote me on that. So the AP has a very solid amount of pen, not quite as much as Henry pen, but quite solid. You are going to very reliably Citadel cruisers at really very long range. I mean, a ship like Des Moines, Salem, there's probably no range you're really not going to sit it if it's flat. Now, where Golden Lion AP though has a significant noticeable advantage over the PVO AP. Yes, it is less accurate. However, when you are pushing close in and you are fighting battleships, the Golden Lion begins citadeling battleships several kilometers beyond where the PVO does. PVO doesn't really citadel battleships outside like consistently. I've had games in this where I can't even citadel like an 80-degree Slava at 4.5 kilometers, right? Something that the Golden Lion would easily citadel. So on the whole, however, right, that's kind of a niche situation, not a super fair comparison. Better guns. In my mind, probably 30% better guns than the Golden Lion. Yeah, again, we're comparing this to the Legmont Gouden Leeuw. Airstrike on the whole, probably your airstrike ability is 20% as good as Golden Lion, maybe a bit better. Now you notice there, I got hit by a Salem HE shell, and one of my turrets broke. And you might be thinking, is that just like a 1 in 1,000? No, there is. I assume, as of recording this, it's a bug. I don't know. But in my mind, it has to be a bug because the turret armor on this is, basically the same as Gouden Leeuw. It's like 200 plus millimeters frontal turret armor, right? 100-ish on the sides and the top. These turrets break to like basically every shell that hits them. I have fought this thing in a Vampire 2, and once I learned that the turrets are bugged, and you can like with HE on destroyers, you can just gun knock this thing. So in my mind, it can't be anything other than a bug. I mean, there's just no way that is like a feature, right? There's no like that doesn't happen to druid turrets that are like what 6 millimeters thick, right? Um, so you see in this situation where you're spamming HE, you're going to do way better than Golden Lion, right? In a situation where you're only spamming HE, you're going to outperform Golden Lion significantly. The airstrikes are 2 kilometers longer range, but they reload, again, comparing to Legmog Guden, over double the time, and you can only store two, right? AA is pretty similar, which is to say actually quite good. It's kind of a meme that anything is good AA, but Gouden Leeuw, Prins Van Orange kind of come the closest to unironically good AA of most cruisers in the game. And so what is the gimmick of the airstrike? Well, the gimmick of the airstrike is ultimately that it's 2 kilometer longer range and the bombs have higher pen and fire chance. Now, in theory, you drop a lot more bombs. However, your dispersion pattern on the bombs is also bigger. So if you work out the math, the PVO and the Golden Lion kind of saturate on a bomb for bomb basis virtually identically. That is, realistically speaking, there's going to be no appreciable difference airstrike to airstrike, the number of bombs you land. Now, that's just the bomb count. These bombs hit for, I want to say like 8,500 or something. Yeah, 8,500. Golden Lion bombs, I don't have the info in front of me, but I want to say it's about 7,000. It might be slightly less. And so what this means is that because you saturate your dispersion drop pattern almost identically, but these bombs do about 20% more damage, you can expect the raw damage theoretically to be about 20% higher. Now, these bombs also have, I believe it's a 48% fire chance. Gouden Leeuw is 39 or 40. So again, another 25% relative better fire starting. So we're looking at, per airstrike, realistically, your raw damage output on most targets probably is 20% higher than Golden Lion. Probably 20% more fires aggregated over the course of a game. However, the other gimmick is that the pen is a lot higher. The important threshold that you're crossing is realistically 40 millimeters, 38 and 40, right? So all these American ships, you will pen them everywhere on the deck. This comes in massive on ships like Maine. If you've ever been in a Golden Lion and you've tried to airstrike a Maine, you know that you do literally less damage than a well-aimed Tromp airstrike because 90% of that thing's deck is covered in unpennable platings for your 37 millimeter bomb pen. This thing pens it everywhere, right? So against American BBs, these bombs go from on Golden Lion fire and maybe 6 to 10k to all of a sudden you're still getting the fires, but a single airstrike on a Montana, a Maine can net you upwards of 20,000 alpha strike, which is kind of wicked. But you're not penning 50, so Germans, right? Russians, things like this. You're airstrike to airstrike. You're not gaining anything more than maybe the improved fire chance, realistically, slightly more damage. And then, of course, Legma Gouden Leeuw loads its airstrikes in, 50 some seconds. These with a full build, I want to say it's like 110 seconds. Yeah, 109 seconds base. So the airstrikes on this are kind of an afterthought. Also worth mentioning is the lead time. I think it's 17 and a half or so seconds on these. It's not going to show me here, but we'll look at it in the port. But it's about 3 to 4 seconds worse lead time than the Golden Lion. Does this really matter? Absolutely yes. The difference in hitting semi-maneuverable targets, like say a cruiser or battleship pushing in, a cruiser throttle juking on a rock, the difference is extreme. Very, very extreme. Also because of how long the bombs take when they drop from the plane to when they hit is kind of strangely long. Really maneuverable ships like Libtard comes to example can just like almost wait to even see where the bombs are dropping and then just juke the fuck out of the way, which is pretty wicked. But you see there, like, the damage from a single airstrike, 17k and a triple fire, that probably is not happening with a Golden Lion airstrike. That would probably be more like 13 to 14k. And there you see there the AP. You've got 12 guns. The AP alpha is like, what, 57? Yeah, 5750. Good pen. Think of these like Henry guns. If you're trying for citadels in Henry, you should be trying for citadels in PVO. Um, so how does it kind of shake up? Well, I would say you're noticeably better in the gun department overall. Yes, every now and then in weird situations you're fighting BBs at close range. The Golden Lion AP is way better than this thing's AP. Very fringe situations. Maybe every 5 to 10 games that comes up. I had it happen the other day, and it did actually like trigger the fuck out of me because I had a flat Slava botting the fuck out at 4.5 kilometers, and I couldn't citadel him. Golden Lion would have like two to three shot him. Yeah, so that was irritating, but that's quite rare. I don't think that's worth holding against this ship. Um, the hull, the Golden Lion hull by cruiser standards is excellent. It's one of the very few cruisers in this tier you could consider armored at all. Now the deck is 30, same with Golden Lion. So when you're playing at longer range kiting, especially ships with 30 mil overmatch do fuck on you, despite your upper belt and icebreaker being 40. Your bow and stern upper parts are 25. So you are well above average tanky hull. I mean, yes, it has issues like the 30 mil deck. Yes, at close range you can get point and clicked in the bow like all these other armored cruisers can. But ultimately speaking, in tier 10, you're probably one of the five realistically tankiest cruisers, and that is also another difference between this and Golden Lion is this takes cruiser fire duration of 30 seconds base, unlike 60 seconds base, but Golden Lion gets 40-second reloading heals. You get the normal 80-second reloading heals. Is that a trade-off or not? To me, it's a difference in play style, and also this is a good example of kind of a fusion game design, properly fused game design. We mentioned how in the Hoffman review, how Hoffman I think is very conflicted. You see, there's double sit in the bow, like good guns, very solid guns. I like the guns. Again, if you are good with Henry guns, you will be good with these guns, I think. And I do believe the Shell Arcs are barely better. But this guy is, showing us a bit of cheek. So we got maybe a bit lucky on that first double sit. You see here, like, I consider myself very, very good with Gouden airstrikes. And I'm just not quite there on the PVO airstrikes. But the main difference between this and the Golden Lion airstrike is the reload time. We talked about this in the Legmog Gouden review, how it's a very special kind of timing on the airstrikes with Legmog Gouden because it basically guarantees you will get permafires that stick for the entire duration of the fire. And there's no real way to do that with the PVO. Because you're typically speaking in an active fighting situation, you're realistically only dropping single airstrikes. You almost never have two stored up for the same target. It just is very unlikely to happen. And so it's harder to guarantee permafires via that way. Also because ships with any maneuverability can dodge if they have brain cells. Even if you get a fire and they damage con and then you go for the perma with an airstrike, it's not the virtually guaranteed double perma that a double Gouden airstrike is, right? You might get a single perma, you might get a triple perma, right? But it's inherently more RNG. The Legmog Gouden really combats a lot of fire RNG just via its reload time, the consistency of the drops, the fact that you're almost guaranteed to hit them if you know what you're doing, things like that. But back to the heal situation and the fire duration. I think this is a nice example of wargaming. They seem to have understood the difference between how you would play this. They gave it, 2 kilometers more range. They gave it a bit worse concealment, right? It's about 3 worse concealment, 0.2 worse concealment, I think. So a bit worse concealment, a bit more gun range, more accuracy, letting you spam at long range more effectively. Longer range airstrikes that reload slower, right? This is an inherently more passive ship than the Golden Lion. And as such, when you get chipped away at long range by HE spammers, having that cruiser fire duration is excellent. On the reverse, when you push in with the Golden Lion, yeah, the long duration fires suck ass, but the short cooldown heals make you more viable in a very aggressive forward position than this thing is, right? So I like what I like about this ship and Golden Lion is this is a rare example to me personally of a premium derivative of a tech tree ship that's a true side grade, right? We can look at the airstrike damage. Um, Pretty, pretty okay. I probably dropped 5 drops this game, maybe. Self-admittedly, I'm not as good with these airstrikes as with Golden Lion. People just have way more chance to dodge. But you saw that one airstrike we hit on this Golden Lion. No, it was the other one. Yeah, I think this was just, yeah, that was a single airstrike. So the X factor of a single drop from this thing is a lot more devastating than the X factor of a single drop from the Golden Lion. But the Golden Lion with the Ledge mod doesn't really get its impact via one drop here, one drop there, right? It's the fact that, like, if 2 minutes goes by, this thing can triple strike you, right? So, like, 2 minutes goes by, you haven't seen Golden Lion in 2 minutes, and you're bowing on a rock in your Des Moines, you could literally just get dev struck by an airstrike. Like, a triple Golden Lion airstrike aimed properly on a bow in Des Moines is basically a dev strike, right? There's kind of no way to do this unless you double airdrop people. Then you can get close to dev striking bow in cruisers, right? Um, but it's kind of just less likely that you're storing up the airstrikes for that big alpha hit, right? Because again, if you see a DCP and you have an airstrike, you should be dropping with it to try to get the permanent fires right. So, um, but it's a nice example of, like, is this ship better than Golden Lion? No. If you're an aggressive player, Golden Lion's way better. If you're a passive player, PVO is way better. I think it's that simple. And it's nice to see. I'll actually give Wargaming props on this one. You could argue that the airstrikes are toxic and should be in the game. Agree. Sure. Agree with Golden Lion. Agree with Trump. Get it out of the game. Sure. But it exists. Given that it exists and they wanted to make a derivative of Gouden Leeuw, I think it's actually pretty successful. And I kind of hate to say it, but not only is it a successful side grade premium to the GL, but in my mind, man, it's frustrating because this is just what the GL should have been, right? I mean, like, to me, this undeniably just should have been the GL line where the airstrikes are a rare, very difficult to use X factor. The ledge mod could even build into something like the accuracy or the heal cooldown at the cost of airstrikes or the cost of reload or something. The PVO is a glimpse of what could have been with the Golden Lion. The Golden Lion, as it stands, I think when played by a competent player, is one of the most toxic ships in the entire fucking video game because the airstrikes drop just fast enough that they're kind of undodgeable if you're in a battleship or a positionally based cruiser. These airstrikes are very dodgeable. It's very rare that I get hit by a PVO airstrike. Uh, and, like, I'm in the full bomb dispersion pattern, right? It just doesn't really happen. You have so much time to get out of the way. The bombs take so long to fall from the sky, giving you more advance warning, right? Um, this is what that ship should have been, like, competent guns, armored cruiser hull. Maybe even we up the deck armor to 40, make it truly armored, right? Um, but as it stands, if you're a player who kind of enjoys Golden Lion, but you're frustrated by the inconsistent guns, and you're frustrated by you feel like you have to play super aggressive to use the airstrikes, and you're frustrated by, like, the fires, right? If all of Good and Lou's downsides really make you rage, and you don't care that much about the airstrikes, um, then this is not a bad pickup because at the end of the day, you are like a kiting cruiser with armor, which is very rare. I mean, pretty much all of the armored cruisers in the game are pushing cruisers like a Napoli, right? Or they're positionally based utility cruisers like the 3 armored Russians, right? Or even Golden Lion, I would argue, is much more position. It plays like a positionally based utility cruiser because you have to get a lot closer. Now, do I personally prefer this over Golden Lion? No, I don't. Um, because I am very good at leading those airstrikes. I recognize they're toxic and stupid, but Lejma Gudin to me is like one of the currently strongest cruisers in the game if you know what you're doing. If you're good at playing aggressive, if you're good at taking space, if you're good at forward positioning, particularly early on in the game, it's nuts. It's absolutely fucking demented. This ship is not quite that. So what I would say as far as power level goes is the PVO is much more consistent, right? Because I mean, you look at this game, right? Like, where would I position in Lejma Gudin to use airstrikes? Well, basically nowhere, right? Their team is too pacifist. Even though Bourgogne, I would have to be all the way into B, right, to airdrop him. Um, does the extra range on these airstrikes like magically make them more able to be used than Golden Line? In my opinion, not really, because like even if you go the first 5 minutes in Gudin without dropping an airstrike, the airstrike DPM is so much higher with Lejma Gudin that you're going to make up for it massive later. But that's why I say this ship is more resilient, more consistent, not in the damage farming department, because I think a competent Golden Lion player will probably average more damage than in this thing if they know what they're doing and they're an aggressive player who positions well. But like, let's say the CV wants to hump you and you need to play farther back, more consistent because the damage is dealt by guns, right? Um, the enemy team is pacifist, more consistent because you have better accuracy and range, right? So you are more consistent in the experience, is what I would say with the PVO. Um, there aren't really going to be any games where you feel worthless because at the end of the day, you're a kiting cruiser with good shell arcs, solid HE pens, solid fire starting, okay DPM, and good range, right? So you're always going to be able to impact the game. Now, I have a bad habit of playing this like Lejma Gudin, which is probably not the play. So the last game would have been an example of where the Golden Lion would have been probably just way better, right? Because I was within airstrike range of people all game. And a lot of the duration of this game, in the airstrike department, you're going to notice that, again, a Lejma Gudin would have been way better and more toxic for the enemy team. But here we have a situation where the ship is just way better. Shooting destroyers, man. There's like no comparison. This dispersion ellipse being like 20 to 30% tighter at this kind of range, like there is no comparison. This thing's ability to fuck with destroyers compared to Lejma Gudin, right? I mean, you see there we're hitting 4 shells, like not a chance. Not a chance you hit 4 shells ever front gun Golden Lion, right? So way, way, way more effective at punishing destroyers. I would argue way more effective overall at punishing broadside cruisers because the pen is almost Henry level, right? Henry basically sits most cruisers at max range anyway. So, if a cruiser goes flat, these guns do slightly less damage per shell, but, you know, there's a lot of situations where Golden Lion, like, shotguns broadside cruisers, maybe you get one Citadel, this thing, like, 30Ks them, right? Because you're stacking sits on them. Um, but I do think that this ship doesn't suit my preferred playstyle as much. Part of what I love so much about the Golden Lion is it is a ship that is best utilized by aggressive bots. Um, and I'm an aggressive bot. It's just is what it is. You see here a sub is spotted. Yeah, you don't get sub. You get you're rolling the oil cans over the side of the deck, unfortunately, on this thing. So subs just grief the fuck out of you. If they ever get to torp you, it's GG Reds, game over. But you see here, like, I'm still not in airstrike range, even in this thing, right? And Golden Lion wouldn't have been fared any better. So the first 7 minutes of this game, this ship is objectively superior, right? When the enemy team is playing pacifist, this ship is objectively better than Golden Lion. Because overall, especially in pacifist games, right, the Golden Lion short cooldown heal is great to tank like a 1v1 BB fight because you get to heal twice instead of once before you die. Uh, but that's not really an issue when you're playing, farther back, right? You're not going to take mad mega damage. So you see there, uh, that guy was just so fast, we barely clipped his ass with the bombs. Um, you know, Golden Lion, I would have been probably getting 30, 40K on that guy with a triple strike. Because now the enemy team is like kind of finally moving into my airstrike range, right? Um, and especially something like a Schlieffen at this range, right? Keep in mind you're not penning 50 millimeters on this thing. You're penning 46. So we're like kind of penning him, kind of not. But getting the fires, you are, like I said, a bit more likely to get a fire with any given airstrike just because the bomb fire chance is higher. So that's a nice little bonus. Um, but 30 mil deck, and not a, you see there again, the first shell that hits my turret just knocks it. It has to be a bug, man. I just don't know what else it could be. There's no cruiser there's no destroyer I've ever played that loses turrets like this thing. But you see here that he's at longer range, so all of his secondaries are plunging in and hitting superstructure and deck. So I'm just like kind of just evaporating to this guy's secondaries, right? Unfortunately. Now, the heals, like I mentioned on the Gouden Leeuw, are good to tank like a 1v1 AP focused fight, but undeniably, as long as you can spread the damage being dealt on you over a few minutes, the 30-second fire duration is pretty mega. Giant asset. Now, so this game is a bit awkward. You can kind of see the pros and cons of this versus Golden Lion on display. Early part of this game, neither ship can airstrike anything. This ship is way better, but with better guns, right? Now, we're in a weird situation where I've gotten centrally positioned, and the enemy team's pushing in because we've triple capped them, right? And now, this would be a situation where Ledgebog Guden would eat these kids for lunch, right? I mean, it would just absolutely eat this team for lunch. All but one of their BBs are in airstrike range, right? This kind of HP in Ledgemont Guden, I'd be reloading airstrikes in like what 45 seconds, something like that. And each airstrike from that thing is about, unless you're shooting now, unless remember again, unless you're dropping a U.S. battleship, um, then it's just better. Way better, right? I've already dropped two more airstrikes on these battleships pushing in, but then I think what's going to end up happening here is I ended up taking a fire, and just not eating it for 60 seconds probably, is a massive asset. So it's kind of this awkward situation of, as soon as you play aggressive, you're way worse than Guden overall. So it really is a side grade that is playstyle based in my mind. Uh, if you like kiting, right? If you like permakiting in Hindenburg, and you want kind of a unique flavor with good armor, right? For a cruiser, excellent armor. I mean, it should be better in my opinion. 30 mil deck is like a joke. Like, you're gonna armor the cruiser but leave the deck 30, so half of a Vermont salvo just crushes you, right? I mean, it's kind of bullshit in my mind, but whatever. It's the design they go for. Um, but as soon as you play forwardly and aggressive like this, a couple of things are happening. Well, one, the improved dispersion. I mean, does that matter with the BB 8 kilometers in your mouth? No, obviously it doesn't. You would rather have Golden Lions, uh, harder hitting AP with more penetration. The airstrikes, when you get positionally based, right? You see here, even with all this adrenaline rush going, it's still a 90-second reload. It's still double the reload of Legend Guden, and you can only store two. So in this situation, this would be like a 200 to 250k game in Legend Guden once I've gotten to this position. Now, there are games where you're just not going to get here, right? You're never going to have the opportunity to get here. You're going to have to play like a pacifist damage farming cuck, and it's a lot worse. But again, dispersion, I think you can see significantly noticeably better, especially on destroyers. Basically, all four shells from that back gun hit that guy. But Golden Lion's ability to impact the game while giving zero risk, I mean, is what makes it broken in my mind. It's stupid, but it's just undeniably a way. It's a potentially much higher game impact ship than this. Again, if you play, broken record narration, but if you play very aggressive, like I like to play, uh, then this isn't gonna be you. But if you like the idea of the Golden Lion, right? You like the idea of having the armor, you like the idea of having the harder hitting guns, you like the idea of having the airstrikes with the good concealment. If you like the Golden Lion conceptually, but you don't like you consider it feast or famine, maybe you're dying trying to get in aggressive airstrike positions, right? Maybe you're doing this, you're doing that. You're not managing your DCP very well, and you're always taking permafires for 60 seconds, then yeah, maybe you pick this up. Probably a bit, maybe worth, honestly, might be worth picking up. Um, If, however, you love the Ledgemod Guden, right? Kind of like, remember in the Hoffman video I just did where I said if you love Ledgemod Elbing, this is not the ship for you. I think that's a semi-valid comparison to the PVO. If you love Ledgemod Guden for the reasons that I love it, the aggressive play, the insane damage farming from aggressive positions, the ability to push in and like Citadel everything, like be a threat to BBs and such like that, I don't think you'll really enjoy this because at the end of the day, this ship is definitely designed with the idea of kite farming in mind. Now, I don't play it that way. I'm probably not playing it to its strength, which is farming at 15 to 18 kilometers with solid guns and actually having armor. Like, especially ships without 30 mil overmatch, dude. Like, this ship farming your Montana is kind of like insanely toxic because you just don't do any fucking damage to it, right? Because the 30 mil deck is no longer a weakness. The 25 ass and knows when it's kiting are unreliable to aim for. So you're just kind of relying on random pen and over pen superstructure and a bit of nose and ass damage, like maybe 5 to 10k volleys if you're lucky. And then it pens you everywhere because it meets the 38 mil threshold for your upper belt and your deck armor. Um, yeah, this is a also like a very it's such a strange example. It's a very specific example, but I understand it's a hard counter to main. Like it's a very bizarrely unique counter to the main. If you can lead these airstrikes, because again, remember, we talked about how you kind of have the same bomb saturation on your dispersion pattern as Golden Lion, but the thing is, a ship like the main is so fucking long and so fucking big and wide that you hit even more bombs on it than you hit on Golden Lion. They do more damage and they pen it fucking everywhere that's not a turret top, right? So a properly aimed double strike from the PVO on a main is horrific, dude. Absolutely fucking horrific. I have 40, 45. I think I have 45k triple fire to main with a like I I I don't like to include the one-off games, right? We always do back-to-back games, but like if you save up 2 airstrikes, this is why this maybe even like I haven't really seen what people are running this season in clan battles yet, but if there's a lot of main, it might be like a funny little pick. But it is really funny. If you get a main in your lobby and you store up 2 airstrikes on it and it DCPs, um, it's actually kind of hilarious because you can like basically insta delete a third of a main with a double airstrike from this thing. Whereas Golden Lion airstrikes are like literally worse than Tromp airstrikes on that thing, right? So just a funny, interesting counter. But the turret bug is rough. And I think that I don't trust Wargaming to fix it. I guess that's the unfortunate reality is I don't really trust Wargaming to fix the turret bug. And given that I don't really trust Wargaming to fix the turret bug, remember I put the pinned comment on the Hoffman. I wasn't aware that Hoffman was bugged until a clanmate brought it to my attention that like some people just can't even play it because their game is fucked when they try to play it. Obviously, this isn't that. Like, you can play this ship. Yes, you lose like 10 turrets a game as opposed to 1 or 2. But the problem is that the more time that goes by where Wargaming doesn't fix this bug, people are going to start to know about the bug. Like I know about the bug. When I run into a PVO, it's actually a free kill for me because I know about the turret bug. And all I do is just spam HE at the turrets and it never gets to shoot back at me. And like you can like literally 1v1 this thing in like a fucking daring or a Marceau because you can just literally perma its turrets out. Like you're not perma breaking them, but you're perma disabling them, right? Like they're just getting disabled on cooldown. You have cruiser DCP, so you can't keep them up for more than 5 seconds at a time. Like I've literally fought this thing, and like it doesn't even shoot at me, right? It gets one salvo, I break a turret, I break a turret, I break a turret. It's done for 30 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever, and then you just kill it, right? Incredibly aggravating, rage-inducing. How long is it going to take Wargaming to fix it? I don't know. I don't understand why it's already not fixed. They at this point just give it invulnerable turrets. I mean, I get that that would be retarded as well, but like turrets are not the easiest thing to break in this game. You know, this has a lot of frontal turret armor. It's not like you're going to be constantly trying to break turrets on a heavy cruiser like this in normal situations. I mean, at this point, if Wargaming was a competent developer, they would just fucking like custom patch the turrets on this thing and even give all ships immune. Remember when Schlieffen came out and they accidentally had a bug that made your secondaries never die? Yeah, put the bug back in or something. Like, so while my point stands that if you like Golden Line conceptually but you struggle in it, the ship is easier to play for sure. Airstrikes are harder to lead, but it's easier to play, right? The gameplay style is inherently less risky. Like it would probably be worth getting. It would probably be the one ship in the steel event like worth getting unless you're a greasy carrier main. Fuck you. But like I don't think you should, because what if they don't ever fix it? I mean, for Christ's sake, dude, the drop short bug and the shooting over island bug and the lock on dispersion bug, those bugs have been in the game since I started playing years ago, and they're still in the fucking game. Theoretically, this bug should be easier to fix because it's one ship with one turret. Like, clearly they just have a number wrong in a spreadsheet somewhere, and it's like chance to break is down there with like Yu Yang turrets or something. But like, how can I recommend that you get this when the turrets are bugged? You can't. I think it's an interesting ship. It's a nice side grade. I like it. The captain, we'll go over the spec, works. But man, I don't think you can recommend. I don't think you should recommend this ship to people when the turrets are bugged. Like, if the turrets are still bugged in a month, every fucking person and their grandma is gonna know to aim at your turrets with HE and just perma them out, right? You're gonna suffer mad. Like, the only reason you kill anything in the ship is people don't know to just spam their HE at your turrets. All right, let's stop rambling and get in the port. Okay, we will start with equipment. I think we're pretty close to objectively correct build. You could grab DFAA mod, or I mean, all this does is reload it faster. You could grab one of these two mods if you want. I do still think you probably should build into the airstrike, because especially given how much longer the reload is, there's even more of a raw time benefit to building into it. But it's either airstrike or prop mod, I think. If we look at the maneuverability, the turning circle is very good, and so is the rudder shift. If you wanted to go crazy on like a lighthouse build, I think this would actually be a weirdly okay candidate for it, but also not really because of the concealment. I think we're pretty optimized with this overall. Captain spec, it's just the GL spec, really. There's very little value in even the improved demolition expert because your base fire chance is so high, right? You're only relatively buffing it by like what, 8%, something like that. But you could grab that instead of the airstrike mod if you really wanted to, I guess. This is the GL build. Kind of really the only other points maybe up in the air is you could drop the AA skill but your concealment is so good. Top grade gunner is such a dubious effect on this ship. You could go outnumbered, but you've got a ton of range. It's like, is it really proccing that much, right? I think again we're pretty much optimized here overall. I mean, if you really want PT, but 10 seconds, or is it 15 seconds off the airstrike time. I mean, it's 15 seconds because of the reload being so shit, right? So like, if you don't run these, let me see if I can change to a captain without. Okay, so we'll put a captain with no reload. And then this is 20%, right? So this would be 150 seconds, right? So 150 seconds base reload time by just running the captain skill and the mod here. We're down to 108 seconds. So we've shaved 41 seconds off the airstrike reload time, which is obviously going to make you drop like anywhere from 3 to 5 more airstrikes in a medium to long game, right? So kind of a big deal. But otherwise, you could run that. I've debated running. We might do like a meme build series in the future, because I have a few candidates for meme build. I really want to do a meme build on torpedo boat Hoffman, because I think it's actually like an objectively better version of Ledgemod Z52. If you look at the stats, I think it's like Ledgemod Hoffman is just like an objectively better Z52 with Ledgemod, which is hilarious. That Ledgemod is tragic. But the problem with Lighthouse build on cruisers like this is your concealment is like actually too good because you can only debuff it so much, right? I mean, if you get rid of concealment here, you see we're at 10.8. That'll bring us up to 12 kilometers. If you get rid of it on the captain, that'll bring us up to like 13.1, 13.2. If we slap this on here, we're only going to get like 14.5 kilometers of detect, right? Which is like, it's weird to say, but that's not bad enough to viably play Lighthouse, right? It like kind of isn't. But it's something worth considering though, because you will still have basically stealth airstrike range. I actually think there might unironically be some viability in a Lighthouse build on this thing. There really might be. Might be something I play around with. Overall, probably not. The DPM kind of like isn't there. And again, anytime you're going to be shooting like 15 plus kilometers, you're not even going to get top grade gunner active, even with a no concealment build. So there's that. We can look at the armor. It is a copy paste Golden Lion hull. If we look at Gouden Leeuw, 40, 30, it's a copy pasted hull. Even the superstructure, I believe, is identical. Yeah, it's identical. But you see here the guns, 229, 127, 120. They just break to like every shell that hits them. Like, I don't know what. The only thing I can think of is that Wargaming's bug has these turrets coded as having like 1 HP per gun. But like, yeah, I've like, I hate to, perpetuate bug abuse, but it's like, it's just, people are going to know. Like, this is the problem people are already figuring out. If you play 2 games in this thing, you realize something. Like, play 2 games in the PVO where you lose half your HP and you're like, why am I running? Like, I literally went back in the port and wondered if I forgot to put the first module slot on. Because I just couldn't believe it. Like, fucking Marceau was like perma-griefing my turrets at 12 kilometers with HE. And I was losing my fucking mind, man. I was losing my mind about it. But you like the Snoz is huge, right? Obviously, like, yes, you have an icebreaker. The Snoz is huge. BB players who can aim at medium close range will like 20 KU on cooldown. Because we don't like truly armor cruisers. And then the deck is 30. Just sad, man. Even just making the deck on these cruisers like 32, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough out there, but still, tier 10 cruisers, you're one of the most resilient because of that normal fire duration, undeniably. It's a good hull for a cruiser, very good hull. Solid guns. The DPM isn't great, but solid guns. Solid fire starting. All around, like like, if you took the icebreaker away, I'd be like, this is shit, right? I mean, if this thing had like a Cerberus hull or something, like, we would be talking a different ball game here. But yeah, having armor on a cruiser that's an HE farmer is like, you forget. It's like, wow, it's kind of nice that like Montana doesn't just like randomly blow me up through the nose. This is kind of like, right? Like, the icebreaker lets you not randomly blow up through the nose. We'll look at it, I guess, like Gouden Leeuw. You have Turtleback that is totally nullified by BB by 380s or up, right? Because this is overmatched. So instead of having a very likely chance of ricocheting shells up into the casemate for pen damage, the second battleship shoot at you with 380 plus guns, you do kind of blow up. And you're impossible to overpen, basically. But you can kind of bot out to like almost all cruiser AP in the game. Like, there are very, very, very few situations where cruisers can citadel this thing flat. We talked about that in the GL review as well. So, should you get it? Again, I'd say if they fix the turret bug and you like Golden Lion but struggle in it, it's probably a solid pickup for steel. But man, I don't have any fucking faith in their ability to fix this bug. And if they don't fix the bug and 3 months goes by, every fucking person in the game with above a 35 win rate is going to be griefing your turrets because they're going to know about the bug. And it's going to make this thing a fucking nightmare ship to play. But it's really fucking funny to troll main players in. So that's it's actually a huge upside to me. It's actually why I got the thing, or why I wanted to get it. Yeah. All right, that'll do it for the PVO. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.